From the Daily Catch, this is The Catch-Up. I'm Walter Mullen. We promised you a bonus episode this week, and here it is, the full audio of the Daily Catch's Sunday, May 17th Candidates Forum for Town Supervisor with Debbie Hecht and Amanda Miller. The forum runs just under 2 hours, and listeners will learn about many issues and how the candidates diverge. We hope you enjoy it.
This is very exciting, a little like a wedding. Very nice to see everybody. Good afternoon. I am Emily Sachar, and welcome. I am the founder and the editor of The Daily Catch, and I'm joined here today with our publisher, Walter Mullen. Just took a seat at the table. As I said, we're so glad you're here. We are producing this forum today in partnership with the Rhinebeck High School Student Council, under the leadership of faculty advisor Jennifer Nelson, who has been a remarkable partner. Our student assistants today are Bennett Pulver, Justin Morton, Dustin Page, Wilhelmina Hagedorn, Jennifer Cruz, Caswell LaRose, and Jujana Moore. Let's give them a round of applause. Also, a huge shout out to Miss Nelson. Today is her birthday, and we want to recognize her extraordinary gesture of support in being here to celebrate democracy. Also, a shout out to Panda TV, which is recording this event for quick availability on their Panda Now app and YouTube channel, as well as on Spectrum Cable Channel 1303. Just look behind us at the array of workers and supporters making sure this happens. Thank you. And a shout out also to Radio Free Rhinecliff, our podcast partner for our award-winning podcast, The Catch-Up, with whom we will produce a full show about this event later this coming week, so please stay tuned for that. For those of you who may not know us well, The Daily Catch is an independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit newsroom serving Red Hook, Rhinebeck, and the surrounding communities. We are so lucky today to be joined by several members of our Board of Trustees who are crucial to the care and stewardship of The Daily Catch. I'd like them to stand as I read their names aloud. Kendra Sinclair, the chairwoman of the board. Chris Travers, the vice chairman of the board. Anushe Hashim Byrne, esteemed secretary of the board. Maya Farish, esteemed member of the board. Dale Nissenbaum, attorney and esteemed member of the board. Scott Heller, esteemed arts editor for the New York Times and member of the board. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce to you the candidates for Democratic primary for Democratic Supervisor of Rhinebeck and invite them to join me here on stage. Each will be escorted out by a member of the Student Council. Visitors, please join me in issuing a round of applause for Amanda Miller and Debbie Hecht. Thank you. Now, candidates, please be seated as our students stay here on stage with me. Caswell LaRose is a graduating senior heading to the University of Maine next year to study construction engineering technology. He is the treasurer of the student body, a multi-sport athlete, and a lead actor in school productions. Caswell, please read the biography of Debbie Hecht.
Debbie Hecht The town of Rhinebeck Deputy Supervisor was elected to the town board last November. Debbie was born and raised in New York City. Her husband, Sean O'Neill, works for the MTA as a subway dispatcher. They're a proud union family. Their daughter, Ruby, will be finishing middle school next month. They moved to Rhinebeck in 2020. Debbie is the co-founder of Rhinebeck's first pride organization, Beck Hood Pride. She has served on the Rhinebeck Democratic Committee and has worked with Starr Library as an employee, a volunteer, and a collaborator. With others, Debbie co-founded the town's communications committee, which plans informal gatherings for the town board and the Rhinebeck community, believing that an engaged community and good governance go hand in hand. Debbie has a BA in literature from Bennington College and a PhD in classics from Columbia University. She's an avid knitter and an aspiring gardener. She is an environmentalist, a preservationist, a conservationist, and a community advocate. Debbie is concerned about overdevelopment in Rhinebeck and, with the support of the town board, has initiated a tourism capacity study. Believing the health of Rhinebeck's drinking water is a top priority, Debbie is also working on a hydrology study that focuses on the town's wells and aquifers. Finally, Debbie is the chair of the Social Justice Committee at her synagogue in Kingston, helping those in the community and beyond who are struggling or at risk for persecution.
Jennifer Cruz is a graduating senior who is the student body secretary, a member of the chorus, and a morning announcements broadcaster. Jennifer, who will attend Marist in the fall, enjoys fashion, and she created the steampunk-inspired costume designs for this year's spring musical. Jenny, please read the bio of Amanda Miller.
A resident of Rhinebeck since 2015, Amanda Miller brings a...
Wait, can you move the microphone closer to your mouth?
All right, sorry.
And go a little slower.
A resident of Rhinebeck since 2015, Amanda Miller brings a blend of high-level legal expertise and dedication to her professional work. Raised in a blue-collar Long Island neighborhood, Amanda went on to graduate from Duke University with a bachelor's degree in history and then earned her JD from New York Law School, eventually becoming a partner at a premier New York City plaintiffs' class action law firm. There, she spent years holding large corporations and global banks accountable for moving markets, litigating against the world's elite white shoe law firms. It was also during this time that she met her husband, fellow attorney Chris McGrath, with whom she shares 2 children. Today, Amanda operates a local real estate law practice, managing hundreds of transactions annually while maintaining a commitment to pro bono legal services. She frequently provides vital legal advice for the most vulnerable members of our community, including undocumented immigrants. Most notably, Amanda co-authored the habeas corpus petition that stopped her son Turcios' deportation last summer after Mr. Turcios was taken from his home in Rhinebeck. Whether she is navigating complex litigation, a property closing, or advising a neighbor in need, Amanda says she is guided by a deep sense of fairness and a people-over-party philosophy. If elected supervisor, Amanda intends to work to ensure an inclusive future for all Rhinebeck residents.
Thanks again to Caswell and Jenny. Thank you. Now, some quick notes about how this forum will work. We will be asking a series of questions across a range of topics. We will alternate the order of questions between the candidates, with most questions identical, but a few tweaked to suit each candidate. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question, and Walter will serve as a timekeeper, alerting each of our candidates with a hand signal and perhaps a little shout out when 20 seconds remain. That's an indication to you candidates for you to wrap up, and then Walter will signal when time is up. We ask each of you to be respectful of the clock, of one another, and of the audience. We will also include a brief lightning round of more personal and fun questions just to give you a sense of the people behind the positions. We have decided in the interest of time not to take questions from the floor today, but we have gathered questions from our readers, from many of you, for the past 6 weeks, and many of them will be asked today, anonymously. Thanks so much to any of you who took the time to conceive questions and share them with us. This forum is better for your participation. Thank you. While we will likely not be able to fact-check statements made by our candidates in real time this afternoon, the Daily Catch will continue to report on this race, and we take our responsibility to verify claims and provide context very seriously. Finally, I want to ask everyone, candidates and audience alike, to maintain decorum today. No whistling, no excessive clapping or cheering, certainly no booing. Let's instead listen carefully. Local government works best when people can engage thoughtfully, even when we disagree. With that, thank you so much again for being here, and let's begin. Debbie, please deliver your opening statement.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Is this good? Great. Hi, Rhinebeck. First, I'd like to thank the Daily Catch for putting this forum together. I'd like to thank the high school kids for participating, and I'd especially like to thank all of you. As many of you have heard me say before, this is what I wish our town board meetings would look like. For those of you who may not feel welcome in town hall today, as supervisor, I will work hard to change that. The Daily Catch asked us to introduce ourselves by telling you why we're running for supervisor. I knew I wanted to run for the town board in November of 2024 after the presidential election. I was already doing community work then. I had already been serving on the Rhinebeck Democratic Committee for years. Adding public service work to this felt like the next right step. I attended every town board meeting for a year before officially serving on the board. This was when I learned how much I love the work of local governance. Even the mundane details, what town hall calls keeping the lights on, all add up to the big picture of keeping our special town running. Loving the work is a part of why I'm running for supervisor today, and it has been a privilege to be on the board doing what I love in service to you all. Recently, in a moment of exuberance, I said, in print, no less, that I would like Rhinebeck to stay the same. I created a nice little mess for myself with that, and I own it. I clearly revealed my protective instincts when it comes to Rhinebeck. But I do believe that protection can go hand in hand with progress. I have always supported thoughtful growth that benefits residents and is in keeping with our comprehensive plan and zoning laws. This protective instinct is another reason why I'm running for supervisor. With 3 new hospitality venues in various stages of approval in Rhinebeck, I share the community's concern about how much our environment and infrastructure can take. This is why I have already begun researching a tourism capacity study on the board with the board's full support. We here in Rhinebeck are so lucky to have the variety of restaurants and stores that we have. And I know that it's tourist dollars that allow them to thrive. And I do want them to continue to thrive. But the concerns of Market Street cannot come at the expense of our residents' quality of life. My protective instinct also has me working on a hydrology study for those of us in the town who rely on well waters and aquifers. We know that healthy water and healthy bodies go hand in hand. Finally, I'm running for supervisor because I believe that I have the right temperament for the job. I have talked about leading through kindness. Kindness does not mean being a pushover. You can be strong without being mean or dismissive. You can be authoritative without being a bully. Kindness understands that you disagreeing with me doesn't make you my enemy, someone to fight against. We will differ, and we will need to resolve those differences respectfully. I hope you'll join me in creating a community that allows for, even encourages civil debate in the most democratic of ways. This is how we can collaborate on building solutions together from the ground up that will make Rhinebeck even better and stronger in the years to come. Thank you.
And now, Amanda, I invite you to please deliver your opening statement.
Good afternoon, everyone. There's a lot of you here. It looks like you're here to see a show. So hopefully we can deliver. My opening statement is much shorter. That's okay. So first, thank you, the Daily Catch, and thank you, the Rhinebeck Student Council, for hosting this event. It is amazing to see you all here. The town, though, is at a crossroads. And I think we all feel that, and it's why this room is filled. We're at a crossroads financially, we're at a crossroads with infrastructure, and we are at a crossroads with sustainable growth. We have a lot at stake in this election. And I look forward to sharing with you today my solutions and qualifications to deal with these complicated issues. So why am I running now? After this week, that's a really good question, and I'm asking myself it. But I think it's my time. I've lived here since 2015. My husband and I have 2 children. I have a small business in the village, and I am the only person sitting on this stage whose family's livelihood depends on our local economy. And I'm committed to this town and to all of you, no matter who wins, and especially Debbie. Thank you.
Now, Jujana Moore, please join us on stage. Juji, a senior, is the executive editor of Rhinebeck Reality, the school newspaper, president of the French Club, and a member of the Robotics Club. She will attend Princeton University in the fall, where she will major in international affairs. Her investigative journalism and attention to detail have led the school paper to award-winning status. I told her that I might offer her a job at the Daily Catch. Juji, you have the great honor of asking the first question today. Amanda, you will answer first, and then Debbie.
Declining enrollment is affecting both the Rhinebeck and Red Hook school districts. One cause of declining enrollment is the cost of living. How will you work to make housing more affordable and more available for young people looking to stay in or move to Rhinebeck to start their families?
Thank you. So one thing I've talked a lot about in the campaign trail is something called the Community Housing Fund, which is a buyer-paid real estate transfer tax. So if you already own property here, you don't pay anything, but if you were to buy property here, money goes into a fund that allows individuals to be granted or loaned up to 50% of a purchase price, up to $816,000. And there's certain income limits, and it allows people who work here, who live here, or who have lived here in the last 5 years to buy a home if they qualify for income. The other thing I would do is engage developers who can build homes that cost like $500,000. That's kind of what we need. Sorry, I need a drink. Because there's plenty of people who don't qualify for these income limits but can buy a $500,000 home. So that's another thing I would do. The other thing I would note is that when you go to Red Hook, you really notice that they care about their kids. Their playgrounds are beautiful. They have a pool that has swimming lessons for kids under 5. We need more services for kids here so that families know that they are welcome here. Thank you.
Debbie?
Hi. I really value and support all compassionate policy. And I'd be very interested in talking further with you about the Housing Conservation Fund. My concern with it is that it's my understanding that it's a Hamptons model, and we, given the population and the wealth differences between the Hamptons and our small town, I'm not exactly sure how that model would fit here in Rhinebeck. But I do think that there are some things that we can start doing today that could benefit people. Hello? Okay, it's better now? Okay, sorry about that. I do think that there are some things that we could start doing today that would be a huge benefit to people. The first thing that I think that we can do in the town is pass good cause eviction. I have a friend who lives in the town. His building, he's a renter. He's with a young family. His building was sold, and the person who bought the building raised the rent by 50%. And when he was asked, well, what can I do? What remedies are available to me? All he was told was move. That to me is unacceptable, and I think that we can pass policy that will protect renters like good cause eviction. It's not perfect, but Sarah Hanna is also working on something called the REST Act, R-E-S-T, that's Rent Emergency Stabilization for Tenants, that
20 seconds.
Oh, sorry. That will help fill the gaps of good cause eviction. I also think that we can do something with accessory dwelling units. This would allow for more small housing without creating suburban sprawl, and multifamily homes.
Juji, thank you. Thank you so much. Let's continue on a topic related to education. Candidates, neither of you sends your children to the Rhinebeck Public Schools. Why not? And what would it take for you to change your mind? Debbie, you'll take that first.
Ruby attended the Rhinebeck Public Schools from, we moved here during in the middle of an academic year. So Ruby started in halfway through third grade and then completed Chancellor and through fifth. And Ruby did very well there. Chancellor's a great school. It's great academically. Ruby's bright, and she thrived. Ruby's school before going to Chancellor was a much smaller school environment. And I started to realize, as did Chancellor itself, that Ruby would be happier in a smaller school environment. So Principal Brett King was incredibly instrumental in helping us find a smaller school, and he wrote a dazzling recommendation of Ruby with the understanding that different kids, different adults, all of us really, right? Like, we all have to find the place where we fit. And Ruby now attends Oakwood Friends down in Poughkeepsie, and it's the right fit, and she is absolutely thriving there.
And what would it take for you to change your mind and send your kids to Rhinebeck schools?
What would it take for me to change my mind? Well, I mean, if Ruby wanted to change, I would make the change. But right now, she's in an environment that she loves with friends that she loves. And she also has the benefit of having gone to Chancellor. Ruby has a lot of local friends here. So Ruby has community here in Rhinebeck with friends that she went to.
20 seconds.
With friends that she went to lower school with, and she also has friends at Oakwood. So it's been a nice balance.
Thank you. Amanda?
So we had to pull our kids out of a certain preschool early, like 6 weeks before the school year ended. And at that time, there was no universal pre-K in Rhinebeck schools. If there was, we would be here, is the irony of it all. Thank you, one person. So because it was so late in the year and you usually find these spots way earlier, I couldn't find any spots in Rhinebeck. I couldn't find any spots in Red Hook. And I was like beside myself, and I reached out to a friend in Millbrook, and she was like, why don't you try Millbrook Early Education Center? And we went there, and it was like a dream. And then there was a spot for Dakota at Duchess Day. And so that's what we did for that year. And we knew during that year we were gonna have to decide, do we pull Dakota out of Duchess Day next year and chance it with Shep to get in the lottery for universal pre-K because there was no guarantee he would even get in. And ultimately, because we were leaving a situation that didn't feel good at this other preschool, and then we found what I felt like was a magical place where these people loved my children, and it just felt really, really good. We didn't want to pull them, and we're happy, and we know what it feels like to not be happy at a school, and we're not going to risk that until we feel like we have to. And so now both kids are at Dutchess Day. It's an amazing experience for us, and what would it take for us to put our kids in the public schools? I guess if they doubled the tuition. But they're just happy there. So if they became unhappy, we would definitely, Rhinebeck would be the next stop.
Thank you. Okay, candidates, what does each of you think are the 3 biggest needs facing Rhinebeck? And thinking about your platform, how would you help address them as supervisor? Amanda, you get the first crack at that.
You said the 3 biggest?
The 3 biggest needs or issues facing Rhinebeck.
Well, one is definitely tourism, hospitality, development. That's all really anyone is talking about. The other one I would say is the occupancy tax on top of that. And I'm sorry, what was the second part to the question?
How would you address that?
Oh, okay. And the third thing is certainly housing. And so I respectfully disagree with Debbie over that this is a Hamptons model. The community preservation tax came from the Peconic Bay, which is the Hamptons, and it's working beautifully up here in 6 different, I think, places in the Hudson Valley. And right now, Michelle Hinchy is pushing through a bill to make the community housing fund statewide. So if it's good enough for Michelle Hinchy, it's good enough for me. So again, with housing, it would be the community housing fund. The occupancy tax and tourism, I think with the occupancy tax, it needs to be focused on where the beds are. And we need to see more of these tax dollars in the village. And so when we talk about curbing tourism or curbing, some types of development that the occupancy tax could give us revenue for, to me that doesn't make any sense, because on the other hand, we're also hiring people, and we're not going to be able to afford them soon. Retirement benefits have increased 30% from 2023 to 2024. Medical, 40%. We're going to run out of money, and we're going to have to come to you all. And so if the occupancy tax can help us alleviate that, I am all for it. Thank you.
Debbie, your 3 top issues and how you would resolve them.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so I think we obviously disagree when it comes to having more hospitality industry coming into Rhinebeck. And I've gone door to door to door. I've met with you in communities, and everywhere that I've gone, everyone has been in agreement with wanting to be very careful about future hospitality development and commercial development. In terms of the bed tax, once it sunsets after 3 years, and this is an encouraging thing. So right now, for the next 3 years, bed tax is going to be collected, and it's going to be spent on fixing the Parsonage Street Bridge, which is the town's responsibility. The town owns the bridge, but the bridge is in the village. So it will also improve things for the village, and will be a part of their safe walks to school. So it's like, that's a win-win thing. And after that sunsets, I think the town is very happy to renegotiate with the village in terms of, what is collected and by whom. But for me, I think, putting a hand up to and being very careful about new industry coming in is important. Again, making sure that our well waters and aquifers are safe is very important to me. And I also agree that having housing that is affordable and rent that is stabilized and with policy that benefits tenants over
20
landlords
seconds.
is key.
Let's talk about Starr Library. The town supervisor's office imperiled the funding for Starr Library this fiscal year by a series of unfortunate administrative or clerical mistakes. And then the discussion to fix the error became, in the view of many residents, needlessly heated at a recent town board meeting. What is your understanding of the $82,000 shortfall for the library and how it arose? And how might you handle such a situation differently as town supervisor? First Debbie, and then Amanda.
Hi. So I was not on the board when the shortfall arose. It's my understanding that it was due to clerical errors at Town Hall. The library and the Town Hall had a custom of how they dealt with collecting these 414 funds that relied pretty heavily on people remembering to just adjust the budget to collect the taxes for the library. So again, I wasn't on the board at the time, but looking at it with fresh eyes, this seemed like something that, could go wrong at any minute. What was the rest of what would I do different? What would I have done differently? Or what would I?
Yeah. How might you handle such a situation differently if you were town supervisor and you were managing the logistics of getting this on the ballot and so forth?
Well, I would recommend that anyone with a 414 or any kind of referendum that would get tax dollars that the town would have to collect, that they would attend the town budget sessions to make sure that it's accounted for by the town budget. Because there's a lot happening at budget sessions. They happen right before the elections, then there are elections, and there's a lot going on at Town Hall. So the more that you can be there to ensure that your tax money is going to be collected by the town in the budget, the better. So that's how I would avoid such a shortfall in the future.
Amanda?
Can you repeat the question again?
Sure. The town supervisor's office or town hall imperiled the funding for Starr Library this fiscal year by a series of unfortunate administrative or clerical mistakes, and then the discussion to fix the error became, in the view of many residents, needlessly heated at a recent town board meeting. What is your understanding of the $82,000 shortfall and how it arose, and how might you handle such a situation differently as town supervisor?
So I think it was a very unfortunate situation. I thank Debbie for explaining that it was a clerical error, and that just kind of makes what happened at that meeting even more unfortunate. Because when there's a clerical error, you just own it. You say you're sorry. There was a practice in place that nobody told the library that wasn't going to happen again. And instead, what ensued was the library got blamed for not going to budget meetings, even though they followed the procedure that they always followed, and they did everything they needed to do for the 414, and it just wasn't there. And I do want to say, with all due respect to Debbie, I was rooting for her to not recuse herself and to show leadership in that moment and fight for the library. I really, really was. I was hoping at the last minute she would change her mind. And I hope in the future that even when there are personal things going on, whether it's the little library that the Becca Hook Pride has there and whatever that connection was, to me that didn't outweigh what the community needed, and it wasn't legally required for her to recuse herself. So I do feel that that was a moment that could have been handled better. And in the future, what would I do as town supervisor to make sure that it doesn't happen? I would remember to put it on the budget, and if I forget, I'm going to apologize. I'm going to try to make it better. I would have advanced the money to the library, explained to everyone what happened, tell them that there was going to get re-levied the following year. I would not have made the library come to the budget meetings to make sure we do our job. Thank you.
Can I have a minute to comment briefly on the recusal?
Wait, I can't hear.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, what?
Can I have a minute to comment briefly on the recusal?
I think the next question is going to actually allow you, so why don't you hold and you can include it in your answer. So this comment actually leads nicely into a question about conflicts of interest. Amanda, you are a noted real estate attorney in town, And Debbie, you have already indicated that you feel you have a conflict of interest considering issues around the library and its budget related to your former employment there and your work in the LGBTQ community. Candidates, please tell voters what conflicts of interest you may face as supervisor and how you plan to handle them. And if you want to tack on your answer when we get to it, Debbie, to that question, I think that dovetails nicely. So Amanda, you go first on this one.
So I've thought about this. I mean, the answer for me is kind of complicated. First of all, we have a recusal law on the books with the ethics law, so I would 100% follow that. That involves anything that would make me personal gain, someone in my family personal gain, and there's a variety of other things that you would be legally required to recuse yourself over. In terms of my work, my main contact with municipal government is seeking the municipal records for a property. So if you were to go buy a house, I, as your attorney, if you were buying, reaches out to the municipality and I ask them for the municipal record for the house to make sure there's no violations. And so in that case, I could see it being inappropriate for me to reach out to Rhinebeck's government and ask them, can I have the municipal file on, such and such house on Ackerd Hook Road, my client's buying it. They might feel a certain way about that. So that's one thing that I did think of that I would recuse myself over or not do. I would just probably decline the representation. And in talking, if I'm elected, I'll talk to the town attorney and we can come up with more scenarios, because I know when I was fighting the solar field next to our house that I did get someone recused from the planning board. So I know how it feels when things don't look right. And the last thing I would ever want is for people to feel like they're not getting a fair shake because something I'm doing looks improper. Thank you.
Go ahead, Debbie.
Hi, thank you. So just to go back about the recusal, I am very confident that I did the right thing in recusing. My collaboration with the library is not just a collaboration, but it's a collaboration where we are dependent on Starr's approval for everything we do, even when we don't agree with their rules. And that created an ethically murky situation for me that was made murkier by the fact that I received calls almost up until the moment of the vote from library personnel telling me that they had been in conversation with Amanda and that I would lose votes if I did not unrecuse. So that created an even murkier situation for me. And to me, I absolutely had to recuse. I feel that it's not inherently controversial. I feel that it was made controversial by a small group of people who wanted it to be, and then created a narrative that maybe confused a lot of the public. So I'm grateful to have the opportunity to address you all now. And if it clears things up any further, someone who also works at a local library came up to me and told me, you absolutely did the right thing by recusing yourself. Yikes. As for future
Hold it up closer to your face.
Oh,
Hold it closer here. Yeah.
That's not the instinct. Okay. So as for future conflicts of interest, as the Daily Catch reported, Beck Hook Pride, we are in the process of dissolving our 501c3 and seeking the fiscal sponsorship of Duchess Pride, which is a larger pride organization based in Poughkeepsie. So once our 501c3 is dissolved, we won't have a board anymore. I will no longer be a board member or the vice president of Beck Hook Pride. So with the dissolution of our 501c3, the conflict of interest with respect to the library also dissolves.
Do you have any other conflicts of interest quickly that you need to expose to the public today?
No.
Okay. We now have a number of... We now have a number of questions for you about development. Here is the first. Let's pause for just a moment.
Should we evacuate?
Is there somebody who can see what that is and let me know, because I can't see anybody? Oh, okay. It's the lights, and it happened a few days ago during the play. So apparently they know how to fix this, and it looks like they just did. Fantastic. Okay. Are there people who want to get seated now so we can continue? I see a lot of people moving around. Okay. We now have a number of questions about development. Here is the first. The Sixth Senses project has been a source of intense friction and debate, not only in Clinton, where it is to be based, but here in Rhinebeck too. What is your position on this development and why? Debbie, and then Amanda.
Hi. My position on the development is that I do support the town's lawsuit. I wasn't on the board when it was initiated, but the basis of the lawsuit is that there are entrances that would be made in both Hyde Park and Clinton to the development of Six Senses. And these entrances violate the zoning laws of both Clinton and Hyde Park. I think the Hyde Park Zoning Board turned it down 2 or 3 times before the Hyde Park Town Board passed a resolution that would allow for it. And that's called spot zoning, and it's not legal. And the way they zoned for this precluded any environmental review of an area that we know already to be environmentally sensitive. So we, as an abutting municipality, have the right to speak up when our neighbors are not following their own laws. And that is the basis of our lawsuit. There are a lot of other concerns about the Six Senses development and how that would impact the environment. Common Sense Hudson Valley has done a very good job of making clear what these concerns are, and I'm very happy to see that the Clinton Planning Board has recently
20 seconds.
That the Clinton Planning Board has recently asked IHG to do an environmental review. They did something called a positive declaration under SEEKR. What that means is SEEKR is the State Environmental Quality Review Act. So basically the Clinton Planning Board is making sure that IHG does a full
That's
environmental
time, Debbie,
study.
but we'll be coming back with another question on
thank
Six
you.
Senses. Amanda?
So, number one, we should not be using our tax dollars to sue a neighboring town for a project that is not in our town. That is my position as town supervisor, right? It doesn't matter if Amanda thinks we should or shouldn't have Six Senses here. Now, the lawsuit, I believe that we are lending our name to a lawsuit to add legitimacy to it so the common sense folk, the residents of Clinton and Hyde Park, don't sound like NIMBY. And that is a bad use of our name. The other thing is, if we really felt that if our neighbors are spot zoning and not following SEEKR, we need to sue them, then we should be joining the boat club and sue the town of Red Hook. Because in Red Hook, the boat club is alleging a federal version of spot zoning. They're saying that the town changed the zoning at the boat club to devalue it, knowing it was going to eminent domain it and depress the market value of it. They are also suing the town for not following SEEKR. So why pick Six Senses to sue and not the town of Red Hook? To me, the answer seems to be because maybe the Hyde Park supervisor is a Republican and the town of Red Hook has a Democrat in it. It's just the picking and choosing of winners and losers has got to stop. If we have a policy that we sue for spot zoning and SEEKR violations, then let's have it. But that's not what we
20
have.
seconds.
I'm sorry, what? All right, thank you.
So I'm actually going to pose this question again because my question was really about
Six Senses, not the lawsuit. This next question was going to be about the lawsuit, but let's back up. I'd like you please to articulate for the audience, what is it about Six Senses that you support or oppose, about the development itself? Amanda, first you, and then Debbie.
So Six Senses is going to be, this is what I support about it. It is going to be paying about $700,000 in school taxes to the Hyde Park School District and not send a single kid to that school. It's going to be paying about $200,000 in property taxes to the town of Clinton. The occupancy tax that the town of Clinton has instituted is going to provide $1 million annually to the town of Clinton. And Six Senses has also agreed to give 0.5% of its gross, not its net, of its gross, to a sustainability fund for the town of Clinton. Six Senses is also what's called Global Tourism Sustainable Council Certified, and I might have got some of those letters backwards, but what it means is they hire locally. In order to get this certification, you have to hire locally. This is going to create 150 jobs locally. The other thing is they don't use any plastic at their resort. They literally pay extra for everything to be packaged not in plastic. So I think if there's gonna be an entity developing that property, this is a pretty good one. And so I support that about the development.
Thank you. Debbie?
I just want to first start by saying that the town has capped its financial contribution to the lawsuit at $10,000, and it has yet to spend that much money. So that's the amount of your tax dollars that are being spent. Less than $10,000 out of nearly a $7 million town budget. That's the first thing. The second thing is that, if that a seeker review can only provide necessary, important information that Clinton needs to understand whether or not any development, no matter how good the character or soul of that development is, belongs in that specific spot. If the environment itself is too sensitive, if the development would do too much damage to the natural resources there, this is the information that we're going to learn from the positive declaration under seeker. So this is a good thing. More information is good. And I trust that that information will be used to determine whether or not it's appropriate to have Six Senses or any development go into that area.
Another question now on development. Commercial and residential development can define what kind of town Rhinebeck will become. Discuss one current or proposed development project in Rhinebeck that you think is good for the town, and one that makes you cautious or that deserves closer scrutiny, and tell us why. Debbie, and then Amanda.
Okay, that's a really good question. Let me think. One thing that I have concerns about that is it has not yet been approved, but I do have concerns about Rhinebeck Villas, which is that Rhinebeck Villas would be a hotel that would be built along the 9G corridor between the Four Corners, or between the stoplights there and the entry to the bridge. And this impacts northern Rhinebeck in a neighborhood called the Hook. And the residents who live on the Hook are very concerned about a few things. They're concerned about what a high-density development would do to their well water supply and their well water quality. And they're also concerned about where the wastewater would be dumped. The area where it would be dumped is something called an intermittent stream. And this intermittent stream is like 1,500 feet away from one resident's home. So those are my concerns right there about how it impacts residents. And I'm further concerned because it's my understanding that the villas is in accordance with zoning laws, and that the DEC requires no more than an intermittent stream for effluent to be dumped. So I am very concerned about how to move forward and advocate for a community who is rightfully scared, but who the laws are stacked up against.
You have a couple seconds. Do you want to talk about a project that you support?
A project that I support so far is Linwood.
Okay. Amanda?
Just addressing Six Senses briefly, and I appreciate Debbie saying that the money's capped at $10,000, but that money could have gone to the library, and we're fighting Hudson 7 over $2,500. Every dollar matters because every dollar matters. Now, the question was which one I support and which one I don't.
A current project that you support and a current project that gives you concern.
So 2 projects I'm concerned about, even though you asked for one, is Linwood and the Rhinebeck Villas. The Rhinebeck Villas for honestly all of the same reasons that Debbie said. They have concerns over I was talking to someone who's local and he was like, oh, that was a dump. And I was like, oh my goodness. So, the residents over there, they want the water tested. They want the ground looked at. They are concerned with the traffic. And I agree that the comprehensive plan we should relook at it to see, should a hotel go on 9G anymore? Another local told me that you could put anything on 9G and you can't put anything on 9, and maybe that should change. With Linwood, we all agreed with the comprehensive plan where hotels should go. They shouldn't go where Linwood is. And again, the picking and choosing of winners and losers. Why does Linwood get $7 million extra in valuation, and whoever who lives in HP 20 in that zoning district doesn't? It doesn't really make much sense. And the other thing that doesn't make sense about Linwood is they put out this marketing material about it, and in it they're touting the regional resurgence of tourism in our area as a reason to invest here, and we're talking about curbing it. So now we're trying to market this property to people, say invest here, and then we're just gonna turn off the economic engine. And so one that I support would be the Soho House, which is already in the works.
Thank you very much. So this next question, our final question about development, sort of dovetails nicely with the answers each of you just gave. I have slightly different framings for this question. Amanda, you've stated that we can't build a wall around our town. What's your response to people feeling that change would ruin Rhinebeck's character in the face of strong hospitality interest in Rhinebeck?
I understand the fear. Dutchess County has only projected about 15,000 people to move here between 2020 and 2050, and they're mostly going to be concentrated in southern Dutchess County. I think that the fear is if people come here and see what we got going on, the secret's out, and they're all going to want to move here. But I would remind them that our businesses can't rely on our foot traffic alone. 50% of all credit card spending at restaurants in our town come from visitors. 50% of all credit card spending at our retail establishments in Rhinebeck come from visitors. Tourism drives investment and it attracts talent here. I've been in touch with Destination Dutchess, and tourism is the 4th largest employment sector in Dutchess County. It provides 10,000 jobs. That's 9% of our workforce it employs. It is a destination town, and I understand it's really scary to people, and I am not proposing we open up the floodgates and everything turns into a hotel. I come from Long Island. I took my kids to Long Beach during the pandemic, and I thought to myself, I don't know how my parents still live here, and I don't know how they ever drove me anywhere as a kid, because it's horrible. So I certainly don't want us turning into Long Island. If I did, I would just move there. I want to strike a balance between understanding that if we attack our small businesses like what's been happening, we are actually attacking our residents, and it has a ripple effect because the sales tax accounts for, in 2023, 15% of our revenue, and in 2024, 10% of our revenue. It matters.
Thank you. Wait a minute. Debbie, the question's going to be slightly different to you.
Oh, okay.
You have made the following statements. There are so many different hospitality companies that are banging on our door, it's alarming. And as you alluded to earlier, you've said that 20 years from now, you want Rhinebeck to look the same. Yet you support calling for a hospitality project at Linwood, which is located on a rural Rhinebeck road in one of our historic preservation zoning districts, the HP 20, as Amanda just mentioned.
Yes.
Can you clarify for our audience this seeming discrepancy?
Yes. So my support of Linwood has to do with the fact that they are, Linwood has something called a pre-existing non-conforming use, which means that even though at the time that Linwood was allowed to have its land use, there were no zoning laws in that area. Since that time, there were zoning laws that were, is it my microphone? Okay. Since that time, zoning laws were created that would not allow for like a second Linwood to be made. But Linwood is exempted, that's the pre-existing non-conforming use, to be able to function as a hospitality venue, which it does right now. It functions as a hospitality venue. And so that's what it would continue to do. The squeaking made me lose my train of thought. I'm so sorry. So Linwood would basically continue to function as a hospitality venue where it is. And the sisters at Linwood, they've really been driving this bus the whole time. It's always been their wish that that land benefit the community. And they want it to benefit the community in a few ways. One, by returning to the tax rolls, which it will, so that's why they wouldn't consider selling it to another religious institution or a 501c3 that would be tax exempt. And another would be so that residents can still have enjoyment of the land and still walk on the land. So the sisters have always wanted this to be a hospitality venue, and the town has just been in a supportive role. Again, they're the ones who are driving the bus, and I do want to support the sisters in what they want for this property.
Candidates, each of you has stepped away or stepped back from commitments or plans you have made. Amanda, you resigned from the Board of Education and from the Board of Southlands, the equestrian center south of the village. Debbie, you decided not to pursue an academic career after earning your PhD, and you have stepped back from Beck Hook Pride, an organization you co-founded. Please, each of you, please tell the audience why you pulled back from these commitments, and if elected, how can you assure voters you will serve out your full term as town supervisor? Debbie, and then Amanda.
The reason why I did not pursue a career in academia is because soon after completing my PhD, I became pregnant with Ruby. And because of Sean's work as an MTA employee in New York City, we were rooted in New York City. And it would be very hard to find a tenure track position in New York City. I would have been, if I did seek employment in teaching, it would have been as an adjunct, and I wouldn't have even made enough money as an adjunct to pay for the childcare that I would have needed to leave Ruby. So I decided to jump into parenting with both feet, and I worked as a mother full-time for many, many years. As for Beck Hook Pride, we did not step away from Beck Hook Pride. We were a board of 4, which is still a very small board. I mean, these Pride events are heavy, heavy lifts, and you need a lot of organizational support to be able to do that. 2 people stepped down for reasons having to do with work and life, not because they wanted to leave Beck Hook Pride, and that left just me and Michelle, my co-founder. And it's really impossible for a board of 2 people to be able to do the heavy lifts of the pride events that we were accustomed to doing in Rhinebeck and Red Hook. So we didn't step back. What we did is we found a creative solution that allows us to stay Beck Hook Pride while seeking fiscal sponsorship in Dutchess Pride. And what this means is that we can rely in the future on Dutchess Pride for all of the organizational support that we need to continue as Beck Hook Pride to put on pride events in Rhinebeck and Red Hook. So we're not going anywhere. We have found a way to strengthen ourselves in circumstances that were not ideal. And as I've said before, volunteerism is down in Trump's America. The kind of people who would be normally volunteering are fighting social justice fronts all over the place, and people are just exhausted. So I understand why we didn't have people coming out to do this hard work with us. And
Debbie, next time.
Okay.
I do want to give you, though, 10 seconds to answer the question that I asked, which was, how will you assure voters you will serve out your full term as supervisor?
That I have because I'm doing the work now, I will continue to do the work, and I'm committed to do it.
Okay, thank you so much. Amanda?
So one huge distinction is that this is a job, and sorry, can you hear me now? One distinction is that the town supervisor role is a job. I will be paid for it. That is a huge distinction in my view of the world. With the school board, like I said, we pulled the kids out literally while I was running for school board. Had we pulled them out and then the school board thing happened, I would not have run for school board. And so, because everything was in turmoil, but I went through with it, and when I realized that we were not going to send our kids to school, and we weren't even going to do it the following year or the year after, that it was likely not going to happen, it didn't seem right, because there were already 3 or 4 other board members whose kids did not go to the school, and their kids did go through the school system, they just weren't there anymore. So at that time, I felt it was best if the school board had representation from someone whose kids were actually in the school system. With Southlands, there was, we all on the board signed like a confidentiality agreement, but what I can say is that small non-for-profits can be challenging environments. A non-for-profit I have no affiliation with whatsoever just lost 4 board members at once, and there were 2 other board members with me that resigned. It was one thing after another in terms of things that made me feel uncomfortable, and so I spoke to my husband, and we decided as a family that this was not going to be a good fit for us. And so what I would say to assure voters that I will carry out my full term is that I am committed to you. I am committed to this. I've completed high school, college, law school, studied for the bar. I've become partner at a law firm. I am committed. These other circumstances were just that, other circumstances.
I want to give you the 10 seconds to answer. Why would you leave the school board just because your children or child wasn't going to go to school there?
It truly felt to me like I had no skin in the game. I just didn't feel that way. And I really wanted you all to have someone that had skin in the game.
Now to the topic of inclusion as a governance imperative. Both of you have said you want to be inclusive of the citizens of Rhinebeck in the way you govern. How do you propose to achieve this goal, and how will you work with and honor people with whom you disagree or with whom you have uncomfortable relationships? Amanda, first to you and then to Debbie.
So my door will always be open as town supervisor. It doesn't mean that we have to be personal friends if there's a challenging pre-existing relationship, but my door will always be open because I know when I went to the current town supervisor to ask her about the solar farm next to my house, what I got was a big slam in the face. And the door was shut for a really long time for me. And it was really, really unfair. And I don't want anyone to have to feel that way. If I disagree with you on one project, you can come back to me on another one. It's not if you disagree with me, you're dead to me. It's just we can agree to disagree, and that happens. What was the other? Sorry, someone yawned, and I.
Just how will you maintain an open door policy, or how will you work with people with whom you disagree or with whom you have an uncomfortable relationship?
And so there's plenty in the Rhinebeck Democratic Party right now that are not happy with me, and that's okay. Again, my door is always open, and I think the fact that I have broad bipartisan support, even though they can't vote for me in this election, is a testament to that. When we have differing views, we can still find common ground and still work together.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Debbie.
One thing, as I've gone around in meeting with different communities, I've always said that Rhinebeck is a small town of neighbors, and it is that, absolutely. But this campaign has also really opened my eyes to how much we are also a small town of neighborhoods. And as I've gone in different neighborhoods, I've gotten a real sense of, what is going on in this specific neighborhood that is impacting these people. So as I mentioned before with Rhinebeck Villas and the Hook, right? And on White Schoolhouse Road, they're concerned about the Red Wing mines coming in. Wells Manor and the Garden, while I very much support workforce housing, they're really living in the shadow of it. And the sound of the construction has completely impacted their lives in a way that it is not impacting the rest of our lives. They're making a sacrifice for workforce housing that the rest of us aren't. And of course, Rhinecliff has a host of issues, including the fact that they have the strictest zoning laws in all of Rhinebeck. So by going and meeting with different communities where they live, it has taught me so much about all the things that I need to know as town supervisor to best represent all residents of Rhinebeck. And so this is something that I absolutely plan to continue to do as supervisor. This is not just something that I'm doing for the campaign. I will continue to visit you in your communities to hear directly from you what's impacting you and what you need.
Thank you. I think everyone in this audience would like to understand and hear from each of you. How would you ensure a constructive tone at town meetings when addressing difficult issues or facing frustrated citizens? Debbie, and then Amanda.
Yes, thank you. For me, it's having difficult conversations is not a difficult thing in and of itself. It's my temperament to welcome civil debate. And I think that it's very possible to be respectful, to have hard conversations with one another without losing our cool. I'm not someone who's easily triggered. And I also believe that it takes, that very often that it's an opinion that differs from mine that could help to make my idea better, right? So when we disagree, this could be a really great opportunity for cooperation, for the two of us, or however many people, to work together to maybe come up with a third better plan if we can agree on our plan. So I think that there's, when there are differences of opinion, I think that's really a great opportunity to start, figuring out how we can build solutions together.
Thank you.
Amanda? Can you repeat the question?
Sure. How would you ensure a constructive tone at town meetings when addressing difficult issues or facing frustrated citizens?
So again, I have been on the receiving end of our current supervisor's, let's say her temperament. As an attorney, I can't even tell you how many times I've been yelled at, whether it's by a judge or opposing counsel. So in terms of facing a frustrated citizen, I'm good there. I will listen, and you just don't react in a way that is going to make someone feel like they can't come back to you. Again, I've been on the receiving end of it. I know what it feels like, and you can't make people who pay your salary, who pay for the microphones we're holding, make them feel that they can't come and talk to you. I remember when I first met Elizabeth over the solar law, I sat down with her and Chauncey, and I had a neighbor with me, and Chauncey insulted me, and then the next day they refused to talk to me. So it's just, I know what it feels like, and I would never, ever do that to anyone.
Thank you. Let's talk now about working with your colleagues to get things done as supervisor. Debbie, one of your strong supporters told us, this is a quote, "The biggest problem with Debbie is it's going to take longer to do things because she's going to want to hear everyone out." And Amanda, if elected, you would be leading a town board, several of whose members, including your opponent in this race, opposed your candidacy. So candidates, please describe how you will work with your colleagues to deliver on your vision. Amanda, and then Debbie.
Sorry, can you repeat the part about me then? I got lost. Can you repeat the question for me?
Yeah,
Leave
the
out
part
the
of it
Debbie part.
We said, Amanda, if elected, you would be leading a town board, several of whose members, including your opponent in this race, Debbie, oppose your candidacy. So please describe how you will work with your colleagues to deliver on your vision.
So I think, I've met Debbie once before. Elizabeth introduced us at a Democratic event, and Elizabeth introduced me to a lot of people at that event as this is Amanda, she's a badass attorney. And so I think, especially after meeting Debbie again today, we're going to be fine. I think that I'm hopeful that we all can see how the sausage is made with the government. And by that, I mean, we might not be able to pass everything that, quote unquote, I want. And I think that's okay. And I don't want 5 yays and 0 nays. That is not what I'm about. I want us to discuss and have a lively debate so you all understand how we each individually feel about a subject, and we can all vote, and you all can judge us for that. So honestly, I'm not worried. I've spoken to Dana, I've spoken to Chad, I've spoken to Alan, and Alan might take a little time to come around, but we'll get there. But I think it's honestly all going to be fine. I think everyone on there, maybe with the exception of one person, they're all professionals. They're super nice, and they've been welcoming to me in my conversations with them. So even though at some point people think I'm personally attacking whoever, I don't think that they really feel that way. I think that's just spin, because I'm also not doing that. And so I'm not worried at all.
Debbie.
You're totally singing my song. I love that answer. And it basically gets to the heart of what Dana was saying about me. So yes, it is true that I like hearing everybody's point of view. And if discussions take a little bit longer so that everybody gets a chance to be heard, that's fine with me. I'm patient, I'm welcoming of input, whether it's from fellow board members or from the community. So if things take a little longer so that we can really be able to talk them out in public, out in the open, just as you were saying, Amanda, that's fine with me.
Please describe how you intend to treat the supervisor's position as a full or a part-time endeavor, what salary you will accept for the role, and how you will fit the position into your other professional obligations. Debbie, and then Amanda.
I'm sorry, can you?
Please describe whether you intend to treat the supervisor's position as a full or a part-time endeavor, what salary you will accept for the role, and how you will fit the position into your other professional obligations.
Okay, thank you. So I would intend to treat it as a full-time job. I do think that it's a full-time job. Our current supervisor, who's been doing it for 13 years, is still doing it as a full-time job. So I do have the time to be able to dedicate to it as a full-time job. What was the other?
What portion of the salary will you accept?
Oh, okay. In terms of the salary, that's not up to either one of us. That's something that the board decides. So we have our budget session, and the board decides on what the salary for the supervisor should be. My personal opinion is that I should not be making what a supervisor who's been doing it for 13 years is making. I don't think I'm entitled to that salary. But again, this is a board decision that follows after our budget session. So my personal vote would not be for the current salary.
I think it was more a question of if you're going to only work at it half-time, do you take a full-time salary or a half-time salary?
I think
So
even
you're
as a
working
full-time
full-time.
salary, I would not, I don't think it's appropriate for me to make the current supervisor salary, having done it for 13 years.
And other professional obligations that could interfere?
So the main professional obligation that could interfere is Ruby, and Ruby is doing very well on her own. She's become remarkably independent over the last few years, and so I absolutely do have the time to dedicate myself full-time to the role of supervisor.
So I have a law practice, I work, I would be doing this part-time. What that means, I can't really tell you at this moment. I know that I will do whatever it takes. There's no minimum or maximum number of hours required by law to put in. You have to fulfill your duty. Prior to Elizabeth, this was a part-time job. She has grown the government so much that we have more people and more things going on. And when you take on like projects of choice like Linwood, that takes a lot of bandwidth. So again, I would do it part-time. I have a paralegal who is amazing. A lot of real estate closings are mostly done at the paralegal, like back end. And I am doing the contract review, and then at the end I'm at the closing. So we have a well-oiled machine now. What the salary looks like, I would leave it up to the board to tell me what they think it should be given the number of hours I'm putting in. I don't think that the salary should change if Debbie were to do it full time, because I don't think that salary is reflective of someone who's doing it 13 years. You know, when you elect new board members, it's not like you reverse their salary. I don't need medical benefits, so I wouldn't need those. And we have an au pair that lives with us who's great, and so childcare is on lock. So really, it's just a matter if you guys think that this is a full-time job or a part-time job. I come to think that you fill the vacuum and the void. So if you have 40 hours in a week to devote to anything, you could do it. So that's, was there a second part to the question?
No, I think just I seek some clarity, as perhaps the audience does. Can you give us some idea of what portion or how many hours a week you expect you would be devoting to the position as supervisor?
I can't, I mean, in my mind, I've thought about coming to my office really early in the morning to do legal work, and then being at town hall from, let's say, like 10 to like 3 or 4, and then doing more legal work at night and perhaps more supervisor duties. Like, I work for myself, so there's no one I have to ask to come or go with. My cell phone is always on me, so I can, you know, check text messages. I'm very, very mobile.
Thank you. Candidates, one of you will lose in the Democratic primary. I ask each of you today, if you are defeated, will you support the Democratic nominee in the general election? You can't hear me? Really? I'll try again. One of you will lose in the Democratic primary. I ask each of you today, if you are defeated, will you support the Democratic nominee in the general election? Oh, sorry, Amanda, then Debbie.
So if I lose, I will absolutely support Debbie.
If I lose, I would absolutely support Amanda.
Do I give you now each an extra 2 minutes on another question? Okay. This question is for Walter. Walter loves anything about Amtrak. The Rhinecliff Amtrak Station project has experienced repeated delays, funding uncertainty, and many residents perceive a lack of urgency and coordination among federal, state, county, and local stakeholders. Given the recent federal grant pullbacks, what specifically can and would you do as town supervisor to actively move this project forward? Debbie and then Amanda.
I think as much as the supervisor and the town board would love to be able to move this forward, this is not our purview. This is the New York State Department of Transportation and Amtrak. And we have absolutely no control over any of this, as unfortunate as that is. But there's absolutely nothing we can do.
So you don't perceive any role that you can play to try to lobby or to help aggravate people to help the project move forward?
Well, of course, we can always do that, but I just want to make it clear that it's not within the jurisdiction of the town supervisor or the town to be able to move it along. We can always write letters and make phone calls, but that's really the extent of it. It's not up to us. That's the distinction I was trying to make.
Amanda?
So I would call anyone who would listen. I would write letters, but mostly I would be the squeakiest wheel they've heard, and I would try to get some answers and see what's happening, and if there's anyone out there that could help, because we have 250,000 people that travel through that train station each year. I think you all did an article on how it's basically ready to fall apart. So there is a level of urgency there that I think requires maybe elevated, us being like a little more annoying than we are currently. And so one of the things about being an attorney is that we're really annoying. So I would be really annoying. And while I can't promise I would get anything done, I would sure try.
I'd now like to pose a hypothetical scenario for you. You were awakened Sunday morning to news that a tanker ship anchored right off the shoreline of the Hudson River in Rhinecliff has caught fire and oil is leaking into the river. What do you do in the first hour and then as the day and week unfolds to manage this crisis? Amanda and then Debbie.
I did not see this question coming. I mean, I guess I would call FEMA first. What was the question again?
Okay.
I mean, we can joint answer it. I think we call some federal
No, you're not going to
and
answer it together.
Yeah.
We're trying to collaborate.
This is a forum. Yes. This is a forum. We want to hear from each of you. I'll read the scenario again, okay? This is what it's like to be a newspaper editor.
Okay.
I'd like to pose a hypothetical scenario. You were awakened Sunday morning to news that a tanker ship anchored right off the shoreline of the Hudson River in Rhinecliff has caught fire and oil is leaking into the river. What do you do in the first hour and then as the day and week unfolds to manage this crisis?
Okay, so probably the first thing I would do is call Gary Bassett. Because Gary would 100% know how to marshal the troops and what to do. I imagine there's several federal agencies we should also call. And so that's in the first hour. And as the weeks go on, it's communication. It's telling people what's happening. It's talking to the Daily Catch. It's
That's the right answer.
It is trying to make people feel like it's going to be okay. I imagine there's going to be a lot of water that we need because, you know, I'm a village resident and there are several town sort of communities that are on the Hudson River as a drinking source. So we'd have to find water, again, FEMA. So that's really, it's a lot of FEMA.
A lot of FEMA and Gary Bassett.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Debbie?
I'm going to second a lot of FEMA and Gary Bassett. For those of you who don't know, Gary Bassett is the chair of the Hudson 7, which is a really important organization that is monitoring the Hudson River, is ensuring that it's safe drinking water. And in fact, at the last Hudson 7 meeting, I think this came up, that something about how prevention in terms of ships sailing along the Hudson is essential, because recovery, once you're dealing with the spill or a mess or something like that, is impossible or very challenging. So yes, I agree, the obvious concern would be drinking water. There are so many people in Rhinebeck who rely on the Hudson for drinking water, and yeah, I mean, I think this goes beyond what local government can address. You would want our county and our state and our federal government involved in helping address the crisis to the, gauging the extent of it, who is needed to come in to help us address it. And we would do everything possible to address it as best as we could. But this is not something we could handle alone as Rhinebeck.
We would need a lot of Dawn dish soap.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
This dovetails nicely with our next question about village and town relations. Maybe this one will be more like what you're expecting. Relations between the town board and the village board in Rhinebeck have been tense for months, owing to the discussions around the bed tax and attempts last fall to unseat the current supervisor. Meanwhile, the mayor has embraced Amanda's candidacy. How would each of you work to retool and rebuild the relationship between town and village governments? I'm sorry, Debbie, and then Amanda. Excuse me.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to start by saying that I have a very good relationship with all of the village trustees. Some of them I'm friends with outside of even being involved in local government. I have met not long ago with Gary Bassett. I have absolutely no doubt that we would work together very well on whatever issues we would have to work on as mayor and supervisor, because it's not personal. It's not about us, right? I mean, it's really about serving the residents of Rhinebeck. And I know that everyone in the village government is a professional, and we would and that the town board is eager to work with the village board in a way that's productive for all residents. And I also want to point out that I think that too much of a negative is made out of the fact that there are differences between the way the village government thinks and the town government thinks. We have different purviews. We have different constituents. This is what it looks like when you have smart people who are thoughtful people working on your village government and smart, thoughtful people working on your town government. We're going to have differences of opinion and differences of vision, and that's fine. That's not a bug in the system. That's the system working as it should. If we agreed on everything, then the village government would be redundant, right? So these differences of opinion means that your local governments are working for you the way they should be. The real magic happens when we have to kind of settle our differences together and how we work together. And I have no doubt that we'll be able to do that in a professional way. We were just able to pass bed tax, which was actually, I have good news, that the state legislature also passed it. So now it's official. And we will continue to work together to manage all of the important issues that affect all of our residents.
Amanda? Oh, sure. You want me to repeat it?
Yeah, can you repeat it?
Okay, sure. Relations between the town board and the village board have been tense for months, owing to the discussions around the bed tax and attempts last fall to unseat the current supervisor. Meanwhile, the mayor has embraced your candidacy. How would you work to retool, if you feel necessary, and rebuild the relationship between the town and the village governments?
So I don't really feel the need to necessarily retool it. I will say that the negativity isn't a function of the system working. It's a function of the current tenor and messaging coming out of the town board or, the supervisor. Everything has been a fight. There's been a fight over the fire contracts. There's been a fight over Hudson 7. Anything that Gary touches becomes just a source of contention. And so that is not a function of the system working. That's a function of the system not working. I've been saying this on the campaign trail. We share more than a zip code. When the village thrives, the town thrives. I know, at least for me and a lot of other people here, we moved here because of the village. And I didn't start out in the village. I started out on Wurtemberg Road. And it's nice to be able to come into it, and it's nice to be able to come out of it. And now that I have little kids, it's nice to just be there. So I do think that while there are differences, that we need to support the village to be the center and the reason why a lot of people move here and want to shop here and spend their money here. And fighting and making everything an issue with them is not working. And if anything, that's creating the bad blood.
So just to give a little reality check to everybody, we have 2 more longish questions, the kind we've been asking, and then we have our lightning round, which I hope you'll all stay for. And then we'll be done in time, on schedule. Many residents feel the property assessment process lacks transparency and consistency, and that assessments have increased faster than residents' ability to absorb rising taxes. As town supervisor, what steps would you take to make the tax assessment process more objective, transparent, and understandable to taxpayers? And additionally, how would you address concerns that rising assessments may be contributing to the displacement of full-time residents? Amanda and then Debbie.
Okay, so the first part of that question?
What steps would you take to make the assessment process more objective, transparent, and understandable to taxpayers?
So one thing, we need a new website. And on that new website would be sort of an explanation of the assessment process. I'm on the Board of Assessment Review. I've been on it for, I think, 3 years now. I just did my training. It is hard to understand. There's a board member, current town board member, his assessment just went down $500,000 and he lives in a 7,000 square foot mansion. That doesn't make any sense to me. But here we are. And so I know Jennifer Munn, the assessor, she does an excellent job. There is sort of a computer program and an algorithm to it. We went through a whole townwide reassessment. And also, people don't understand, just because your assessment goes up does not mean your taxes go up. My concern is that the assessments are starting to more heavily weigh in the village, and that we are sort of making the town rich. That is a concern of mine. But again, I think transparency on the website, explaining to people the process, maybe having things throughout the year to explain to people, help them understand the grievance process, because it can be very complicated and daunting for someone who's not an attorney. I do grieve people's taxes. You need to help them find comps and all of these things. Maybe having some local real estate agents help out and explain. That's all helpful. What was the second part?
How would you address concerns that rising assessments may be contributing to the displacement of full-time residents?
So it's not the rising assessments that's a symptom of the problem, which is the rising expenditures in our budget. So when we talk about the occupancy tax, the literature that the town has put out is that the occupancy tax is also going to pay for, I think, a records keeper and a maintenance person and more garage space and town hall renovations. We set aside this year $50,000 for the town board to have a project of their choice or raises for elected officials. this is not a good use of money, and that is what's causing the assessments to rise and the taxes, because really what you're concerned about is the taxes going up. And so that's a problem. And then if we allow a little bit more development, we can offset the rising assessments elsewhere with other properties and help broaden our tax base. So that's how I would address those concerns.
Thank you very much. Debbie?
So for the first part of that, to summarize, I think what you said was, more information for residents is good. And I agree with that. And I would also add to that, a few people have come up to me to say, we don't just want to see, when we get assessed, we don't just want to see what our assessment is, we want to see it in the larger context. So even when we get those emails about our, property or mail about it, what people really want to see is what are the trends throughout Rhinebeck and how is my house fitting into this? So that's just to add on to what you were saying, as more information is good. I always agree with that. And as for rising assessments, I think that the best way to counter that is the more exclusive Rhinebeck seems to people, and the more property values are going up, there's a penalty in that, and that is what comes in higher property taxes. And so I think this brings us back to the beginning, that one way to deal with the fact that residents may feel displaced over these higher property taxes is to address it with building more housing opportunities, especially ones that are more affordable.
This is our last major question. The town of Rhinebeck has not had a rewrite of its comprehensive plan since 2009. In your view, is this a problem? Why or why not? Debbie, then Amanda.
I do think it's a problem. I do think that it's high time that the comprehensive plan is revisited, and I think that we can look at it without doing an overhaul. I know even the planning board feels this way, that now would be a good time to take a bird's eye view of the comprehensive plan, identify the hot spots, the areas where people are kind of struggling, and address those. So that's absolutely something that I think that we can do. I think also there are legislative things that the town board can do to make everybody's experience in Rhinebeck easier, and we're working on that right now. In fact, there is a resolution. I keep hoping that it's going to come to the floor. It still hasn't come, but there is a resolution almost ready to come to the floor that does something so simple. What it does is it updates the language of things that are allowed since the comprehensive plan was adopted in 2009 to include all of the technology advances that have occurred since 2009. So things like EV chargers and splits, they are currently not allowed because we don't have the language in our comprehensive plan and in our zoning laws to allow them. This is something that the town board can do immediately, pass this new vocabulary, this new technology vocabulary, to be included in our zoning laws, which is going to make everyone's lives so much easier.
Amanda? Amanda?
Can you repeat the question again?
This is getting to be a pattern. The town of Rhinebeck has not had a rewrite of its comprehensive plan since 2009. In your view, is this a problem? Why or why not?
So yes, I think it is a problem. I think in terms of development, especially with these larger projects, that part of the comprehensive plan does need to be looked at again. You can look at the situation with Rhinebeck Villas to see why that is needed. And sorry, was there another part to the question?
Just why or why not is this a problem? You
Yeah,
said it is.
and the other thing I would add is, for example, Brookmead. they just got their craft fair canceled because apparently they're not zoned properly for a craft fair. So that needs to be looked at too. An overlay district there could perhaps be a quick fix, because to perhaps rezone that property you might have to, if you were to rezone the whole RC5, it would be cumbersome. But Brookmead is such an underutilized community asset, and it's just sitting there. And they have all of this space that they want to offer the community, and we can't do it. They can't even have a craft fair. So that's part of the zoning and development overview and relook at the comprehensive plan, because it just doesn't make any sense.
Thank you for doing such a great job, both of you, on those policy questions. We're going to step away for a few minutes now and turn to what we're calling our lightning round. These questions are just intended to be answered quickly and to give the audience a sense of who you each are as a person away from government service. So the way we'll do this is I'll ask each of you a question and we'll take turns, just like we've been doing. So Amanda, what's the last book you read and how did you select it?
So the last book I read was Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, and I selected it because it's the only book I consistently reread. It's my favorite book.
Okay. Debbie?
The last book I read is this incredible book called The Postcard by Anne Barrast, which was originally written in French and recently translated. And it's like a genre-bending book that is, it's a memoir, but it's also fiction. It's a true story where the author recounts her family's history, so she has to that's where the fiction comes in, where she's kind of retelling these stories of her family that she couldn't have been witness to. But it's an amazing story about France and the Second World War and the devastation.
Great, thank you. What is one of your favorite places in Rhinebeck and why? First you, Debbie, and then Amanda.
One of my favorite places in Rhinebeck is, I have to say it's my backyard. And the reason why is because it's all fenced in and I can let my 3 dogs out there and we can just run around together. And that is that's my absolute happy place, is to be outside in the yard with the dogs.
And so I would say the same thing, but I can say another variety. One of my favorite things to do is, especially in hotter weather, so oh my God, is when it goes down at night, loud music and driving through our roads is so calming and nice. They are so bucolic, and that is another favorite thing of mine to do, is listen to music, drive my car all through the streets of Rhinebeck before I go to night.
Do you have any favorite place, or should you just call it the roads?
I like to go out on Rhinecliff Road and go into Rhinecliff and go through there and come back. I just still love going down her grade a lot before we move. But yeah, it's mostly actually going through Rhinecliff.
Okay, great. What is a small local business you love to support or visit? Amanda and then Debbie. Oh, I'm sorry. What's a small local business that you love to support or visit? Amanda and then Debbie.
Land of Oz Toys.
And why is that?
Because one, Elena's great. And it's such a fantastic place. It's sort of why you want to live here, right? You have your local toy store, and she calls herself the crazy toy lady, and it's not huge, and there's nothing terribly expensive there. So my kids get a whole bunch of stuff, and still it only winds up being $60, and I don't understand why or how. But and there's stuff for every age, and it's just such a sweet place, and the floor is multicolored, and it's just nice.
Thank you.
I also
Debbie?
read a statistic that 25% of all toy sales are adults buying for themselves. So we never lose the instinct to play. This is wonderful. My answer would be Oblong Books. I'm a big reader. I love going there, and they've also done, done very generous things with collecting books for the little free library that lives at Starr. I've become good friends with Nicole Brinkley there and with all the people who work there. And so whenever I just kind of need to chill out, I go into Oblong and usually end up with a big stack of books that I didn't plan on buying.
Great. What is your go-to way to unwind after a long day? Debbie and then Amanda.
My go-to way to unwind is probably, sitting. I'm pretty much a homebody. So my big hobbies are knitting and reading. So it's either going to be doing one of those two things, usually in bed and always with the dogs.
Amanda?
So depending on how bad of a day it was, you asked Rhinebeck, but I do like taking the drive out to Stissing House. It is also a wonderful drive. And so I might meet a friend there for dinner, or if it was not a terrible day, I like to go home. We just got, I think Debbie and I have this in common. We each have 3 dogs, which my husband told me is technically a pack of dogs once you get 3. So we each have a pack of dogs, and I have 2 Shih Tzus, and I just got this little puppy Chihuahua who's like 4 pounds, and this dog's the best. She like gets under the covers, which apparently is a Chihuahua thing, and so we Netflix and chill.
Okay. What is a skill or hobby you cultivate that people might find intriguing and unexpected? Amanda and then Debbie.
I'm a really good cook.
Tell us about that.
So Christmas Eve, actually it wasn't just Christmas Eve. I endeavored to make a beef Wellington, and boy did I nail it. It looked perfect. I got the Dufour butter pastry, and I latticed it. It was like 3 days. I stitched together 3 different recipes in a YouTube video. I made like a red wine reduction sauce. And it's, I don't think I'll ever be able to top that.
Okay. Debbie.
That's impressive. My hobbies are, what was the question? Something.
What is a skill or hobby you cultivate that people might find intriguing or unexpected?
I don't think that I have. I wish I had a good surprise like that. I don't think I have a really good surprise like that. I have learned some basic sewing skills in addition to knitting. So I once sewed my own dress, and it actually came out a lot cuter than I thought it would. So maybe that's an unexpected thing. I've also done some very beginner quilting. And that has been very satisfying to me. But I don't think those things are necessarily unexpected.
I think they are. I didn't know them, so they're unexpected to me. What's one way you have used YouTube recently? Debbie and then Amanda. It's so weird. I'm yelling. What is one way you have used YouTube recently?
I wish I had a good answer to that. I'm not really, I don't use YouTube that much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amanda? That's okay.
So I did recently delete it off of our TV because my 7-year-old now is like sneaking YouTube, which we cannot tolerate. So when my husband is not watching golf on YouTube, which is a strange thing anyway for me, I think probably the last thing I used YouTube for was for this campaign and looking at, I think, James Carville and Bill Clinton when they were running around, and I watched a video.
Okay. All right. And now it's time for your 3-minute closing statements. Debbie, you get to go first, and then Amanda, it will be your turn.
From the very start of my campaign, the following has been my motto. Can you all hear me? Yeah. If there's no dancing in the revolution, count me out. In other words, I've always tried to find the joy in the process. Here's what that joy has looked like for me, and all of the following happened while going door to door. Meeting a woman in her 90s who had a career as a nurse, only to have a very fulfilling second act working as a librarian in Poughkeepsie. She boasted to me with no small amount of pride about all the heavy boxes that she carries. Meeting an older queer woman who left Rhinebeck in her youth because she felt unsafe. She immediately returned after the Stonewall riots of 1969, helped found the Gay Liberation Front, and participated in the first ever Pride March. I met a man who told me about what Rhinebeck was like in the early 70s before IBM came here. He said that people would get a 6-pack of beer, sit along Route 9, and see how long it would take for a car to drive by. Someone else told me about what Rhinebeck was like when it was still the violet capital of the world. People would lie on planks and gently pick violets that would be sent all over the world. I met a woman who was a staunch women's rights activist and is one person we women can thank for the right to have a credit card in our name. She actually ended up being an unwitting participant in a Borat movie in a scene where he was trying to understand feminism. Rhinebeck, in other words, the joy has been you. I have valued this time with you so much that continuing to meet with you in your neighborhoods is exactly how I plan to lead as supervisor. I can best represent you when I know what specific issues you're dealing with. Finally, as I continue to go door to door over these next few weeks, please continue sharing your stories with me. Thank you, Rhinebeck, for being the dance and the joy.
So first I want to thank Debbie for doing this with me. I read in your profile that you are a sensitive person, and I can see that here tonight, and so I can only imagine how hard all of this has been. I can weather a tsunami, and I have a few nicks. So I just want to thank you for doing this, because we are giving you all a choice, a very real choice. And we haven't had a choice in a really long time. And so the Rhinebeck Democrats. And so I do think it's really, really important that we are both sitting up here, even though I know some of you wish I wasn't. This is a good thing, right? So I do want to thank you all for coming here tonight. And when you go to vote, I want you to think about who is best qualified based on their work and life experiences to do this job. Who do you want doing the budget so that the library tax gets included? Do you want someone with years of managerial experience overseeing town hall? And do you want someone who manages people's life emergencies every day for a living to be supervisor in the event that there is an actual emergency in this town? Hopefully not the tanker one, though. That's just random. And finally, I want you to remember that there are some very real issues we are facing. We are at a crossroads financially, with infrastructure, and with sustainable growth. And I am asking that you remember that and drown out all of the noise and the gossip, because that's all it is. So again, thank you for coming tonight. Please go vote. Voting starts on June 13th, and when you go to vote, please vote for Amanda Miller. Thank you.
Thank you so much for
coming. Thank you so much to our candidates for agreeing to do this. It is a statement of democracy. Before we say goodbye, a reminder that Tuesday is the Rhinebeck School Board election with voting from 2 to 9 p.m. at Bulkley Middle School. And as Amanda just said, early voting for this election, for which we're here today, begins on June 13th, runs through June 21st. There is no voting on June 22nd, and the primary is actually on June 23rd. You can vote this year at either Starr Library or Brookmead. That concludes our forum. Thanks so much to everyone for coming.